Okay, um, I just tried to record a video, but the audio didn't go through, so we're gonna try this again. Um, Basically, process of implementing a custom hilt. It's fairly simple, it's just very tedious, um, and that's kind of the problem here. Okay. Anyhow, when you're making a custom hilt, well, I shouldn't say making, but when you are installing a custom hilt, you're going to want to take the actual lightsaber model, and obviously, as you can see, this hilt doesn't quite fit. It's a little bit big, so I use a plugin for this. I would recommend it. It's called QCMD The reason why I usually request that these are all unions is because it makes resizing them extremely easy. Ordinarily, I would go back to the person who made this and tell them that their lightsaber hilt is over 15 parts, because clearly you can see here there's 21 parts, and no matter how many times I say that, people still don't seem to understand the limit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be nice and do it myself, and this is kind of something that I shouldn't do, but it's something that I have been doing, which is part of the reason why I stopped, because it takes so much time. Um, when you're unioning parts, usually you'd want to union parts that are of the same color, unless you absolutely know for sure that you're not going to be changing the color. So these are all really black, so what I'm going to do, Control Shift G, and hopefully it unions. There we go. Obviously I've already gotten this down to a pretty small amount. I doubt that these are going to be changing, so I'm going to make those all unioned. Anything that is of the material smooth plastic, change it to plastic. Plastic looks really bad, or I mean, change plastic to smooth plastic, because regular plastic looks really bad when it's resized. Okay, that looks good to me. Now, what you're going to want to do is go to QCMD UTL and then go to the scale section. This looks like it's probably less than half, but I'm going to go with half, so that would be 0.5. And then I click scale. Huh, that's odd. That should have scaled with it. Oh, I see what I did. I just removed one part, not the whole model. Anyhow, you want to ungroup that because it automatically puts it into a model. Make sure that all of these parts are anchored and that none of them collide. Also, obviously this is still a little bit too tall, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to size it down again. Probably about 3/4 of the way. Let's see how small that gets. You don't need to get it perfect, but the closer the better. I think that's a little too small. So we're going to go back with this one, and we're going to scale it again. There it is. Try, oh, that's actually smaller. Try 0.85 maybe. That's a bit better. What you really want to make sure is that the top of the hilt, where the blade is actually going to be coming out, is level with the top of the generic hilt. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems. So, as you can see down here at my command bar, I have a line of code already there, and I use this to line this up with this hilt exactly, so I don't have to position it myself, because that's a lot of guesswork, and I'd rather not do that. What you want to do is you want to find probably the part that's at the most center of the hilt. Obviously, this takes up the whole hilt, so the center of this part is the center of the hilt. So what I'm going to do, change this model's primary part to that part. And you can do that by either selecting it in Explorer, which is easier to do, provided that you remember which part that it is, or you can do it right here in Workspace. The only problem with that is that it's not as precise, so you may end up selecting the wrong part. So I would highly recommend going through Explorer instead. Now what you want to do is you want to rename this model to Hilt. After you've done that, run that line of code. Now obviously, when they built this model, they built it sideways. It happens quite a bit, and it's kind of annoying, but not that hard to fix. All you need to do is use QCMDUTL to rotate it 90 degrees. And you want to make sure that over here it says rotate group. You have rotate group selected, not pivot or object. That'll rotate it basically from the center of the entire model. So you're getting the exact center of the model. And it looks like it's a little bit off, obviously, because this is kind of merging over here and the textures aren't exactly overlapping, but it could also be a sizing issue. But it's not really big enough to warrant a whole rebuild or anything like that, so we're going to go with it. You want to go into the Lightsaber tool, go to bin, and delete the model named Hilt. From there, you drag this into the bin. Now obviously you should probably make sure that it does look good when it would be ignited. And yeah, as you can see, it's clearly off by a little bit. The center is there, and the core is there. So, this is the part that I dislike, because it is the most inaccurate part of this entire process. But, sometimes you have to do it. You just kind of bring the movement value down to a lower value. Obviously 0.05 is a little bit too low, so I'm going to go with 0.01, or too high I meant. I'm going to go with 0.01. Maybe it'll be a little bit more precise. Could go over a little bit more. Not precisely at the center, but it's close enough. And if you think about it, really, this is going to be, it's not really going to be seen where the core is in the center of the blade, because you're going to have the emitter active. And generally speaking, you can get away with just looking at the positioning of the core to make sure that it's okay. But sometimes, and especially with a lightsaber that has something that would be covering the blade, you probably want to make sure that the particles are going to look okay. As you can see here, it looks kind of weird there, because it's kind of overlapping when it shouldn't be. What you can do to change that, the Z offset property, it basically just changes the depth of the particles on your screen. Now the only problem with this is it looks okay from here, but over here it goes a little bit too low. There's two things that you can do. Either one, lower the positioning of the hilt, which I wouldn't recommend, but sometimes you may have to. And obviously you can see why I wouldn't recommend that, because if you go too low, you're going to see a little bit of the core at the bottom there, and that doesn't look very attractive. So usually you want to keep it as hidden as possible. Or in some instances, you may even need to alter the particle effects themselves. And this won't really do a whole lot, it's just going to change cosmetics. Like the Temple Guard sabers, I had to do this with the Temple Guard sabers to make sure that they didn't overlap with the edges of the hilt. So the blades on those actually look a little bit shorter, but they're the same length. So when you're in here, oops, go to transparency, Currently it's set to 0.8, but you can change the transparency over time using this graph. Now, if I do this, it's going to look pretty odd. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to set another point, and the way you can do that is just by clicking. Now to get it precisely where it was, go to Value, and then press 8. Obviously, you've still got a little bit of a thing going on there, so what you want to do is make another point, find the value here, probably change that to 0.1, and then change this one to 0.1 as well. And now that part of the blade is completely transparent for 0.1 seconds. As you can see, that's probably not a good idea because, well, you can see the core. So what I'm going to do, change it to 0.5, or 0.05 I should say. Unfortunately, sometimes this will happen, which is a bit of an annoyance, but it's not too hard to get past. All you have to do is make sure that you reset the values, and then back to 0.8. This is a little more complex, so I don't expect you guys to be doing this. And for the most part, you can get away with not doing it, and it'll probably still look fine. Especially considering the fact that we don't want to change the lightsabers too much just for one person. Because that's not exactly fair to everybody else. Anyhow, I'm just going to undo all of those changes. Okay. So to me, it's okay. It's fine. Yeah, it's gonna look kind of weird there, but it's a small thing. Small price to pay for them building the lightsaber hilt the way that they did. Change the transparency of the core to 1 and disable both of the particle emitters. Otherwise, when people spawn, they'll be active and it'll look kind of strange. Now all you have to do, cut this. If you want to test it, put it into the generic folder found in server storage inside of the lightsabers folder. Paste it in there. If there's going to be another tool in there named Lightsabers, or Lightsaber, just move it to somewhere where you know it'll be safe, where you won't forget that you've placed it. Now all you have to do is run the game, and make sure that it looks fine. And it seems to be okay. The positioning on the body, the positioning in the hand, it's okay. So you're not going to have to rotate the hilt or anything like that. Now what you want to do, drag it into the custom folder and change it to the username of the person that it belongs to. Now, obviously you're probably going to want to bring the lightsaber tool back into the generic folder, otherwise if you publish your changes, people without custom hilts aren't going to get their lightsabers, and that's not going to be very good. Especially for hostiles who get a little bit angry when they can't raid. Anyhow, that's what you have to do for single sabers. The process for double sabers, pretty much the exact same. The only difference I can think of is that when you're looking at how they look, as far as the blades and the emitters look, the blade on the bottom should always be named Blade 2 first of all, so don't rotate the entire model, only rotate the hilt. Anyhow, when you enable this emitter, it's going to shoot upwards, and that's because the script actually rotates the emitter part upside down. I would change that, but it's really such a small thing that it's not really a priority. Anyhow, when you're doing dual sabers, all you have to do, if both of the lightsabers are going to have the same hilt, which most of them will, because people probably, unless they're a builder themselves, they probably aren't going to be using a second hilt. All you have to do, put a lightsaber, or put one hilt, just do it exactly as you did with the single saber, go into the functional folder, change type to dual. It should be labeled as single when you're starting out, just change that to dual. let's see. Also, if they're using two different hilts, what you need to do, for example, if somebody is using the generic hilt and Chad's hilt, right? All you need to do is duplicate the bin model, rename it to bin 2, and then, well, actually you should do it in the way that you would do the single saber twice. So you're going to be doing two separate single sabers, and then you're going to copy the bin model from one of them, and then paste it into this dual lightsaber that you're making. And then what you're going to do with that second one is name it bin 2. Bin 2 is the lightsaber that's going to be going in the offhand, so if they want a specific lightsaber in a specific hand, make sure that you ask. Let's see. And then obviously you change functional to dual, otherwise it's going to be a little bit glitchy. Cut this, put it into the generic folder, and then make sure you put this somewhere that you know that it's safe. Test the game. When you spawn, it just takes Chad's a little bit to load because of all the unions. And that should be fine. Obviously you see, because I named this one bin 2, it's in my offhand, and this one is in my, well, right hand, because it's just named bin. So that is the primary lightsaber, meaning when I switch to single mode, that's the one I'm going to be using. So make sure that that's what they want before doing it. I think that's about it. It's not too difficult. It just takes some time. I'll provide this line of code in the script that you found the link to this video in. If you have any questions or anything that on anything that I haven't gone over in this video, just send me a message on Discord. Obviously, that's probably where I sent this to you. And that's about it. Good luck.